Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. My name is Jon Patton. Boys and girls, we've got a great guest as always, but first we got to get into our sponsors. Be sure to check out Vertex. Go to vertex.com and use our code TGC. Get yourself an EDC bag, get yourself a rifle bag, get yourself some apparel. They've got it all, and it's all really good stuff. I take it everywhere I travel, and it's some of my favorite travel gear ever. And then, of course, blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. And use the code TGC. You'll get yourself at least 10% off. They bump that for holidays and all that. If you like coffee, go get some. They also have tea and hot cocoa, if that's more your thing. Let's talk to our guest today. He is hailing from South Africa. I called him earlier the South African John Wick. Look at him. Majestic Pieter Malan is here. How are you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. It's great to be on the show.
Dude, so tell everybody how you and I met.
So we met at Gavin's Rock Chuck Olympics recently, and it was kind of like this sort of carpool affair, but we didn't really know who each other was. And I was like, who the hell am I meeting at the airport? You were like, who the hell are you meeting at the airport? And like a quick Google revealed who is going to be, what are we sort of in for? And we basically immediately hit it off on the 2.5-hour drive, and it was an absolute amazing time.
Yeah, I think we kind of were forced to get to know each other very quickly. With neither of us having ever been to the Seattle area, and then having to rent a car, shove a bunch of gear in, and drive together. Like, we better have gotten. Like, imagine if we didn't get along, how terrible that would have been, right?
Yeah, well, I have found, like, luckily in our industry, a lot of us are basically the same person. Like, we have similar interests, So it's kind of, I've seldomly had people that I didn't get along with that are sort of in our space, and that's the beautiful thing. But yeah, it was cool. It's almost like making a new friend immediately, which was very, very cool. Yeah, I got to also jump on this. On your Vertex coupon code you gave away to your viewers there. Obviously at the Rock Chuck Olympics, we all got a Vertex bag. And I was like immediately blown away with how freaking awesome this bag is. So yeah, that's legit. I'm very excited to get my hands on some more of their stuff too.
Yeah, dude, I like legit, I use that stuff all the time. Every time we go to the range, I've got my range bag. Every time I travel, I've got their backpacks. And I also have a piece of luggage that they no longer make. Some
legacy gear.
Yeah, some legacy gear. So what I kind of wanted to kick this off with some context for a lot of our viewers that probably have not, I'm going to assume a lot of folks have not been to South Africa, and more specifically your area, in Cape Town area. So can you educate us on what it takes to go buy a rifle in South Africa? What does that take? Is it difficult? What's the process?
Okay, so it's a great question. It's very different to what you guys have in the US. So for us, you need a couple of things. So first of all, you need a competency to have a rifle, or more specifically, you need to have a competency in each different area. So like a pistol would have its own competency, and what that process involves, it involves you actually writing a written theoretical test where you got to identify the firearm safety rules and the components of the firearm. And I kind of like that aspect, not gonna lie, because there's a lot of people that are very dodgy with their guns. So I kind of like that aspect. What I don't like about our system is the execution of the system and how long it takes. So that's kind of the drawback there. So you would usually, what I would advise guys to do if you're getting into this space in South Africa, just do your competency on all the different areas. So self-loading firearms, in other words, ARs and those kind of things, manually operated rifles, shotguns, the works. So you do that once, and that is valid for 10 years. And having said that, there's kind of like a little bit of a gray area that as long as you keep actively shooting, you kind of don't need to redo that. And then after you have that, now that process can take about 3 months to do.
Oh my goodness.
Only after that can you go buy a firearm. Then after you physically buy your firearm, you have to do a motivation as to why the state should issue with this firearm. Because we have CFR, Central Firearm Registry, right? So the government knows exactly who has what. Now, I know your viewers are going to be doing backflips right about now, because I know you guys are fighting that. But we have that system in place. And then after you've gone to the shop and purchased your firearm, You apply to the police to have this firearm, and you literally give them a stack of papers like this, and everything is still paper-based. You physically go into the police office, they'll take your fingerprints every single time, run background checks, the whole thing. And that process used to take very, very long. Very long is relative, right? So with us, you could still look at like a quick turnaround is 2 to 3 months to actually get that firearm. That is if your firearm license gets approved, by the way, which, knock on wood, I've never had an issue with that because my stuff's relatively sorted. But if you have like a drunk driving sort of thing against your name, or you've been in a scuffle with somebody or whatever, it could potentially be an issue for you. Yeah.
Wow. So all in, it's like, say for your first one, you could be looking at 6+ months to make that happen for your first one.
100%. Yeah. Especially because it's quite an admin intensive thing, and it's a bit intimidating if you've never done it before. So I kind of help. I've got a video on my channel actually how this process really works. So if your viewers are super keen on that, I've got a whole video as to how to actually get a firearm in South Africa.
Fantastic.
But after you've done it, it's not that bad, really. And what I advise guys to do is just buy your rifle 9 months before you need it, and then you'll be fine.
Oh man, the difference in the process is it should be eye-opening to a lot of people. It's one of those things where, yes, we have it pretty good because we have a Second Amendment, but we have to constantly be fighting for the Second Amendment. Do you guys have anything like that? I mean, you said you have a CFR. Do you have anything similar to a Second Amendment, or no?
Not really. We just have that sort of fighting mentality, though. So if the government was ever to try something, they come second very, very quickly. We've had a few, we had about 2 years ago, we had really bad riots here. And I think that was an eye-opening experience to a lot of people because the citizens basically defended our cities because the police were nowhere to be seen. So I don't think we should be too worried, or not necessarily nowhere to be seen. They were probably just so overwhelmed that they couldn't contain every situation, right? And the citizens were literally shooting people in the streets that were looting businesses and burning down businesses. And it was nuts, yeah. It was sort of in this sort of COVID phase where food was running out, and then a certain demographic just started looting places. But then they weren't just going after food. They would go into like a wholesale tire business and burn down like an entire freaking warehouse full of tires for no real reason, So it was very eye-opening, and then the citizens really fought back, and it was quite actually cool to see the country sort of unite and defend our small businesses.
So was that politically based riots? Like, were they just pissed at the government? I mean, that you said a couple of years ago. So that was during COVID when riots were happening.
This was 2020. Yeah. So it was sort of, I think COVID played quite a big role in that, but there's always sort of like an undertone of some kind of service delivery issue, or it's this of the government or something to that extent. Yeah. So I'm not a politician, and I don't know 100% what motivates these things, but never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, it sounds like things got a bit rowdy. So when you're talking about people defending their businesses, first of all, before you and I talked, I didn't even realize you guys could possess a self-loading rifle, as you called it, like an AR or a handgun. When I found out you were working with handgun companies and stuff when we were together, I was honestly a little bit surprised. I had no idea that was part of your culture. Is that something people were primarily using to defend their businesses? Is that like a self-defense thing that you have?
Yeah. So for us, what's different to you guys, if you have a valid firearms license, like over my one shoulder, if on your wide shot, a viewer might see my Glock 19 sitting over there somewhere. So we can actually EDC guns. So if you have a valid firearm license, you can carry whatever you want to carry, right? Obviously, you can't open carry here. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but you can't open carry here. However, having said that, it doesn't in the sort of farming districts stop the guys from open carrying.
Okay.
So, it's quite, you walk in, it's like, oh, a leather holster with the revolver. How nice. But So we can legally carry firearms to defend ourselves. You can also use your firearm to defend anybody else's life that might be in danger. So that's worth noting. But in a case where there's imminent danger to yourself or others, you can literally use any firearm you own. Even if you have an AR or my like PRS rifle behind me, whatever you have, you are legally allowed to use. So it's quite cool that our laws are like that. But again, as if we saw this with Kyle Rittenhouse, for example, yes, he got a ton of attention for how it happened, and that guy was probably going to kill him. He had an AR, though, and that made it like a bigger thing than it probably would have been if it was like an EDC Glock or something like that. So, yeah, you got to really motivate, like, why I was driving around town shooting people doing an armed robbery with my PRS rifle, because that could be a difficult one, and you need to be absolutely sure, and this goes without saying for yourself, too, that you have, the legal right to take action. I've always had the school of thought, if I leave my house with my Glock or whatever I'm carrying that day, because I kind of switch it up, if my gun comes out the holster, somebody's dying. Either I'm going to die or somebody else. And it doesn't necessarily say that, South Africa's not a safe place, because where I stay in Cape Town, it's very normal. But I carry the same gun for the same reason that a lot of you guys carry your gun. It's just that unknown. I have a family. And I like nice things, and I don't want somebody to steal my nice things.
Yeah, you worked really hard for those nice things. It's something you should feel comfortable defending. I think that's fair. Yeah. One of the things you and I talked about on our long drive is, besides hunting culture, we're going to get into the hunting culture. We talked about how different it is from Cape Town to Johannesburg. Can you sort of give some context between those two metropolitan areas? Can you explain how different they really are?
So, Joe, I live in Cape Town for reference. Cape Town is one of the most beautiful places in the world, second to the Pacific Northwest that we now know. Absolutely magnificent up there. And Cape Town's very much, it's a difficult one to answer here without pissing off sort of my countrymen. But Cape Town's very much like a little bubble almost, young entrepreneurial families, people that are trying to preserve sort of what South Africa is. And in Johannesburg, it just seems like gangs and armed robberies and cashing transit heists and all of these things are just sort of taking over. They have so many carjackings there. It's actually scary. And in Cape Town, yes, carjackings happen everywhere. But in Cape Town, it's not that much of an issue as it is in Johannesburg, for example.
Sure. I mean, that kind of stuff happens in every major city in the world. Like, it's not, it's just, I believe that poverty and crime go hand in hand. I think it's just something that happens. So it's interesting seeing how different they can be. But I think what my viewers and listeners are going to want to know about is something that you and I got into talking about. Explain hunting monkeys. Explain this shit, because it is so foreign. We hunt whitetail and bear and stuff like that. We don't hunt. We don't have monkeys to hunt. I'm sure we could, but lay it on me.
So this is more like the agricultural business is big in South Africa, right? We have vineyards, we have big citrus industries and stuff like that. And when you are farming agriculturally, or you farming with sheep or whatever, chances are you've got one guy with a vineyard here and one guy with sheep over here. The guy with the sheep is going to shoot the leopards, right? Because they're going to be eating his small sheep or even his big sheep for that matter. As a result of that, these sort of baboons or monkeys have very little to zero natural predators left. And because we've got our guy with the grapes here, by the way, the baboons aren't scared of eating sheep while they're still alive too. They'll do that. They are ruthless creatures. They've got massive fangs like this. They're scary buggers. And they are super intelligent. We always joke and say they've got Swarovskis for their eyes because they've got such incredible eyesight, which makes them exceptionally difficult to hunt, by the way. And so as a result of that, what we do is we do varminting for some of the farmers in the area, where we'll go out to their farms and we'll say, listen, okay, they've got a baboon problem. Let's try and get one or two. We never try and shoot the big males, because when you shoot the big male, there's sort of a territorial thing within the troop, and everybody's vying to be the new male, and all of a sudden it's like cutting the head off a dragon, and now it has two heads. All the young males will just get with all the females, and now you have an even bigger problem on your hands. So you need to be very selective with which ones you're shooting. So we try and shoot the females to obviously bring the number of breeding animals down. So that's the baboon side of the problem. And where they should be 15 in a troop, they're 150, and they will just decimate a vineyard. They'll walk in there, pick some grapes off the thing, put it under their arm, and then walk to the next lot, take some grapes, put it under their arm, and every time they lift the arm up, the other grapes falls out, and they'll just walk through this vineyard like that and absolutely destroy the property. And the same thing with the guys, farming corn or whatever the case may be. And then we have the monkeys, which have basically the same exact character traits. They're just smaller and quicker and harder to hit. And highly intelligent, and they vandalize things. They'll break things for the sake of breaking things. They'll like get on a roof and just sit there with this like a solar panel and just wiggle it until it breaks off. So the farmers really don't like them that much. And generally when you go hunting, if you see a baboon or a monkey, it's kind of a freebie on the house for the American guys coming over.
So is this something that you just see everywhere? Like, how common? You said these troops are massive. How common are these things?
So they move quite a bit in their sort of area. So I'll give you an example. So my folks have a holiday house, or they actually live there now, in a local beach town called Hermanus. Now, the baboons live up in the mountain, okay? And the sort of greeny people protect these baboons in the mountains. But they now know that they don't get shot when they're in town. So they'll casually walk through the whole town, okay? We're talking like they'll walk a mile plus out of the mountain through the houses, and they'll check doggy doors to see if they can get in houses. They'll check windows to see if they can get in houses, and nobody's shooting these fuckers. Okay, so well, we shoot them, but we shoot them with paintball guns when they're like in the sort of built up areas. And dude, they've broken into our house so many times, and you walk into your house, and in fact, just a while ago, some baboons came in a lady's house and actually cornered her. Well, they kind of just walked into each other in the house. She was so scared because these things have these big fangs that she jumped off her second story balcony and broke both of her legs, trying to get away from the male baboon. Because they're big, and they're very aggressive when they're sort of cornered. So she probably had a wise move there, because that would be a bad way to go. Although I don't think there's been a recorded baboon death. But I'd rather not risk it.
Yeah, that's not something you want to be the first on. You don't want to be a part of that statistic. So are these things are just incredibly strong. They wander. This is so foreign to me. It sounds
it's Planet of the Apes
similar.
Vibes.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, they're so smart, John. So on the farm where my dad farms, okay, we'll drive in, for example. I drive in with my car that they don't know. I'll be driving or whatever. But they don't recognize the car. I can drive right up to them, wind the window down and shoot one, okay? Then obviously all hell breaks loose and they run away, and I try to shoot one or two more as they're going off the cliffs. But I mean, it's luck shots at that point. You're just trying to get lead in the air. If he drives onto the property with his truck that they see every day, and they know that he shoots them from his truck, as soon as he drives in the property, he'll be a mile away. They'll start running into the mountains already. Wow. So what he sometimes does is he'll have like one of his farm workers driving the tractor and pulling an empty trailer, and he'll lie back in the trailer with like his shotgun or something, and then they'll drive right up to them, because obviously the farm workers aren't shooting the animals, right? Okay. Or the baboons. So they know that it's not a risk. So they'll drive up with the tractor and like sort of set a trap for them. And the guy goes, okay, now, and he'll pop up and like try and shoot one or two. So it seems like a lot of fun, but it is for the right reasons. We're not shooting these because they're fun. We're shooting them because they need to be shot, because the numbers just keep expanding.
It sounds a little bit like, with the exception of going into homes, it sounds a little bit like the feral hog problem in the United States. They just decimating crops and things of that nature. I mean, hell, we sell in like Texas and places like that. There are helicopter hunts where guys will get machine guns and just go murder a bunch of these things because their population is growing exponentially.
Yeah. I think that would be the move. If you wanted to eradicate the problem on your farm, that would be the move. The Problem, however, is it's kind of limited by this sort of Cape Nature reservation laws and stuff, like how
Sure.
many you can shoot in a day. So the number is 2. So you could shoot 2 a day. Difficult to obviously police that, but I mean, the move would be to get a helicopter and like shoot the troop numbers down to where they're like 15 left, you know?
So wait. You're telling me that this is a known problem. These troops are out of control population-wise, but you can only kill 2 of them a day.
Correct.
Dude, you literally you would have to be out there every single day handling that stuff to dwindle those numbers. That's crazy.
And once you shoot them, you probably don't see them again on your property for like a week and a bit, because they'll just run up the mountain, down the other side, and there'll be another farmer's problem for like a day or 2, and then they'll move to the other farmer's place. So they're always moving around. So it's not even a case where you could, you know, shoot one and the next day you'll shoot another one, and you can shoot them faster than they can replicate. They just breed super quickly, and they're highly intelligent. They're so intelligent, John, that the movement of this troop, they always have one guy ahead, a guy or girl, however he identifies, where he'll be lookout, okay, and they've got one trailing at the back, and the troop will always be in the middle of that. So the troop will come closer to the lookout at the front, he'll move further and sit like on a high spot. So he's usually the guy you see first, okay? So you'll see, there's something cresting or breaking the skyline. And then if you keep glassing, you'll see the rest of the troop coming through the bushes. It's very, very interesting to watch them, because oftentimes I've hunted them and like waited for them, and I've been able to observe them for hours as they make their way down the mountains, getting ready to come into the vineyards. And it's very cool to see the dynamic of how the lookout moves forward, checks everything is safe, somehow signals the group, they move forward, rear lookout pulls up again, and then they sort of do this pattern on the way down to the farm. It's amazing to see the coordination there. So obviously a lot more going on than we give them credit for.
Yeah, it sounds somewhat sophisticated for a species that we see as subhuman. You know, we look at these things and we don't give them the credit that they might deserve. So besides baboons, what kind of stuff are you going out and hunting with, you know, whatever I guess a bolt action or whatever you're trying to smoke check? Talk to me about that, because we got into all kinds of stuff on our drive.
Yeah, so we are very blessed here in South Africa. We have such a wide variety of species to come hunt here in South Africa. So from kudu to an eland, which is the largest antelope in the world. These things can weigh up to a ton, the big ones. So it's a massive creature, right?
Animal.
A lot of meat too. We have gemsbok, we have freaking roans and waterbucks and sables. We have the most amazing animals to hunt. We've also got some really cool sheep for the guys that are sheep hunters, like audads. I think you guys have audads there too.
Yeah, we have some audads.
We call them Barbary sheep here, and they get absolutely massive. So definitely one that's still eluding me. The sort of schedule just hasn't ever clicked where I can do a hunt like that, but it is something that's on the cards. But we've got such a wide variety of animals here. I do think our hunting is some of the easiest hunting in the world, because we have no public land, right? So it's all privately owned, because you don't want any land. You don't want to give land to the corrupt government in my country. Well, that's you fair. Guys very much have a bit of the same problem. I think corruption is pretty much everywhere. Ours are just dumb and corrupt, although they're Sleepy Joe. So our hunting is relatively easy. The properties are massive. I mean, we're still talking like 10, 15,000 acre properties. So it's not exactly easy. It's huge, and but it is still a fenced property. So we know what is there, and the reason those properties are fenced is because if it wasn't, it would just be a free-for-all, and the animals would be gone almost immediately.
I see. So do they do this for management purposes? Like, why are they fencing these properties just to keep the animals in? Like, explain that to me. What's the reasoning for that?
So pretty much the reasoning is it's dedicated hunting setups, which I've always had, because I'm a businessman at heart. I've just chosen to sort of be a YouTube person in this sort of journey that I'm in. But I find it difficult from a business point of view to deal with all the crap of managing fences, all the animals and international hunters, because those guys make way less money than you would if you just took that land and made it an agricultural business, right? If you run the numbers, if you just had sheep there, you'd make way more money. Okay. So largely we got to really be so thankful for these outfitters and these, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? My English is my second language, so it's dropping me a little bit. But basically these farmers that are deciding they are going to use their property to maintain wildlife and the natural African animals that are natively here and let people hunt them, because it is the ultimate hunting is conservation statement. Because if they weren't doing that, because we have no public land, all the poor people and every hunter would just have an absolute free-for-all and just, essentially poach the land until there's nothing left. So if it wasn't for these people, we wouldn't even have hunting in South Africa. Well, not for very long, if you look at it that way.
I was listening to the Meat Eater podcast with Stephen Ranella. I was listening to that this morning. And it just so happened they had a couple guys on that run an outfit out of Tanzania, and they echoed exactly what you just said. If there were no hunters, this place would be absolutely decimated, just decimated. Yeah. And I find that really fascinating. So you mentioned YouTube, and that was part of the reason that you came to the States. What is impact shooting for those that are not familiar? Explain, what your channel is all about.
So I'm on this sort of journey to become the most well-rounded shooter I can be. And I started filming this journey initially just for myself, and where I could watch my videos back and make, small little corrections, whether I was shooting pistol matches, fixing mental mistakes, or long range matches, like fixing how I built my positions or whatever the case may be. And I started uploading these to YouTube, and people started watching them. It's been a hell of a journey so far. So now we've sort of, I guess, pro shooter. We're sponsored by some of the largest companies in the world, and that really goes a hell of a long way to giving us credibility in terms of what we're doing on the channel. But our mission is now to showcase our journey and give you guys tips and tricks along the way where you can be a well-rounded shooter and while doing it with some style points, because I was watching some videos on YouTube and going like, man, this sport's way cooler than they're making, or way cooler than they're appearing to make it look. So I do like fancy edits and like cool music and tunes, because I also enjoy that from a creative side. Sure. Probably lose viewers as a result of that, but it's my channel. I'll do whatever the hell I want.
Honestly, I appreciate that about you. I find that my personal stance is that a lot of gun content is flat out boring. So anything to make it more interesting is a win in my book. So one of the things that you sort of focus on, you hinted at it there, was long range shooting, and is the league like a PRS? Is that what you guys have in South Africa? Is that what you're shooting?
So I'm gonna restart my camera here real quick, and then I'll answer your questions. I'm just gonna stop that and then re-go. So our league we run here in South Africa, I've actually got my own league, which we call the Western Cape Rifle Club, and that has been very successful. In fact, we literally just had our last match this past weekend, and it was freaking awesome. Very cold, because, by the way, it's midwinter here in South Africa at the moment. But I shoot in a variety of leagues. So I shoot some long-range leagues, which is basically prone only, which I really enjoy. I kind of want to start dabbling in the ELR space, although I kind of don't have the exact right rifle for that. So I basically just dabble in a little bit of everything. I also shoot some compound bow. I recently did my first bow hunt. So it's not just rifle hunting. And then I also shoot some pistol competition. So I literally just shoot a bit of both. I used to be, a few years ago, very focused on like precision rifle. And that was sort of my bread and butter, in air quotes, if you will. But lately I've sort of dabbled more in the other things. And I've really enjoyed the process of getting better at other shooting sports too, because I very quickly progressed in sort of our precision rifle scene here, where I was relatively easily winning matches without really trying that hard. And then I kind of got bored, to be honest. And
that's fair.
So now I need to be stimulated by something. And if I rock up at a match and I can shoot like half the stages left-handed just because I wanted to and still win the match, then that kind of got a little bit stale for me. But that's why I started this new league now. So it's a little bit, I can be a little bit more dynamic with like how we design our stages. And what's really cool is it's also on a public range. So everybody can actually come out and practice during the week before we have this competition, or whenever they want to. And it's really cool to have everybody on the same playing field. And we actually had, for the first time ever, I've been to a lot of matches in my life. But this past match, we had a guy that didn't miss a single shot over the whole course of fire. So very, very good. And it wasn't easy. But that means I actually said in the beginning that I will, as soon as somebody cleans the match, that's what we call it when you don't drop any shots, I'll redesign the course of fire. So that now I just made work for myself.
Yeah. Wow. That's honestly, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
So you and I took a journey on our way back to the Seattle area. So we, for context, we flew into Seattle, that liberal stronghold that is Seattle, and then we drove out into the mountains, and we got to see some of the most beautiful parts of the U.S. Absolutely, just flat out beautiful. And on that journey, we found a little town. I can't remember what it's called, but we found the only ammo store in the U.S., according to this guy.
Not a gun store.
Yeah, he was
very specific.
It's not a gun store. Okay, bud. And you were telling me the cost of components. So you bought some stuff to bring back.
But he sells muzzle loaders.
Well, they're not.
Remember? Okay. Which is weird for me.
Yeah. So under our regulations, black powder is not considered a firearm. I can't make sense of it either. But the component cost here versus in South Africa is staggering. And I think a lot of people listening will appreciate the difference. So if you were to buy, say, a box of bullets in South Africa that costs $30 here, how much might it cost in your area?
You could double it. It'll be 60 at least. Yeah. Everything is roughly double. The optics are about double. The ammo, powder, everything is double. So yeah, you can roughly work on doubling anything that you guys are doing in the US. So for us, it's ridiculous to shoot matches. So even that's why with my Precision Rifle League, I had the round counts relatively low. We can't do a 200 round weekend match. It's just unaffordable. So we try and keep the round count a little bit lower. We'll do 6 round stages versus 10 round stages. So still fun, still good, but it's just a little bit easier on the pocket. And the other problem for us is we have to license barrels. Okay, so if I shoot on my PRS gun behind me and I burn out my barrel, because when we shoot PRS, we shoot 3,000 rounds in a year easily. Okay. When I burn out that barrel, I have to go through that same process we spoke about earlier just to replace my barrel. Okay. So it's not a case where I could just order up a new barrel, have a gunsmith chamber it, and I'm off to the races in the 2 days later. Not the case. So we have to license barrels. So it's that from that aspect, it also makes it a little bit more difficult. So yeah. And then barrels, everything's double. So it's very sad for us when we watch you guys making gun reviews, whatever the case may be, like, oh, cool, a Springfield Armory Prodigy is only this much. And then I do the conversion. I go oh, never mind, I'm good on that.
Yeah, when you talk about doubling the price of everything, the value proposition becomes a lot more important. Do you educate me here? Are there any companies in South Africa that are making components and guns and barrels and all that? Can you get it locally without paying an arm and a leg?
You can get it locally without paying an arm and a leg. You're not buying a locally made Glock or something to that extent.
Sure.
You could get local barrels. I don't know. I haven't had any hands-on experience with the local barrels, although I've heard good things via some people. But the price is not that much better because I'm thinking I don't know if this is the case. This is me speculating. Let's say, for example, it's 15,000 Rand for a Bartline barrel. Okay, so what's that? $700 roundabout there.
Okay.
They'll sell it for just under that. So it's still a better deal for you, but it's not quite what the premium one would be. So it's kind of like this offset thing. But yeah. I have all my rifles built in the US and then I ship them here to South Africa. So that's not really something that I'm dealing with. But the long and the short of it, the stuff is expensive as a result of, number one, our exchange rate. For $1 American, I have to spend around about 19 South African rands. Okay, so it's almost 20 to 1. So it's quite rough. But then also there's too many hands in the pies. Let's take an optic, for example. Whoever sells the optic in the US provides it to a distributor in South Africa. They put on a markup after the shipping and after the taxes, all of those things. Then they sell it to a store who then puts their markup on it, and then it goes to the end consumer. So there's just too many hands in the pie and things get expensive. But also the other problem is you can't exactly buy something off like Brownells and ship it to South Africa because of ITAR. So nothing leaves the US to ship to South Africa. So that's another problem we're dealing with. Hence, when we went to this random ammo store, I saw some burgers on the shelf there, some burger bullets, not beef burgers, that aren't available.
Man, I have to have that burger.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll go off over the next 47 hours while it takes me to get home. So that's why I picked up some bullets there. And then actually I almost missed my flight because Emirates scanned my bag and they wanted to know what that was. And it was an exciting 15 minutes before my plane had to leave.
Yeah, we so in the journey back, well, I mean, it took you how long to get to the States?
It took me 30-something hours, 36.5 hours or something to get from my house after I got in my car to walk onto Gavin's property.
Yeah, we were standing around the campfire right after, because we went straight to Gavin's place, and we're standing around, and he pulls out his phone with a timer going, and it shows 36 hours he had been traveling to get to the U.S. That's staggering, just mind-blowing to me. And how long was it going back? Was it a little bit better?
No, it was 43 on the way back. I had a 9.5-hour layover in Dubai. So yeah, that was quite rough. And then the other thing is on the way back, because technically you're speaking to Pete from the future right now, because I'm 9 hours ahead of you. So on the way back, the time difference and the stuff is just, for whatever reason, it's worse. So I had to try and get back on like South African schedule. I took some sleeping pills, tried to sleep in the airport, then woke up right before my flight, and then I had to like stay awake. It was terrible.
Peter was trying to time travel. It's not a thing yet. We haven't figured that out yet.
It's better than a real job, mate.
Ambien and red wine, right?
Exactly. Don't share the secrets. People are going to start drooling on me. But listen, honestly, after we had our conversation, I think that was the last time that I've ever flown internationally sitting in economy. I'm just not doing it again.
I told you, man, you gotta do better for yourself. Life's too short.
Yeah, I should stop buying watches.
Yeah, stop buying watches and $1 million cars, and what other can I put?
I don't have $1 million cars. Our cars are expensive, but they're not that expensive.
Come on, man. We all know that you have a McLaren P1. We know that you have
it. Just never shown it on the channel.
Yeah. Just hide it in the garage, right?
Yeah. I actually know somebody who owns one of them.
Really? What is it like?
Oh, there's some. I don't know. I've never driven it. I'm just turning my thing down here. I've never driven it. He just like keeps it in his garage, in his lair.
So we one of the other things that we bonded on, besides the enamored reaction to seeing a yellow school bus, which made me laugh really hard. I was cackling just watching him. He's like, "Oh my God, it's a school bus!" And I'm like, I see him every day. I rode one, but one of the things we bonded on was cars on this long drive. So we're on the highway most of the way. And you were talking about how ridiculous the trucks are here. What?
Oh, big time.
Explain that to people. Help people understand that.
We don't have the big trucks that you guys have, okay?
Well, so what's big to you? What's big to you?
F-150 is big to me.
Okay. Yeah, that gives a lot of context.
Yeah, so like seeing the big dualies and the stuff, and like the super duties and the things, like I love that kind of stuff. Although it would be the most impractical car ever here in South Africa, because you wouldn't be able to park anywhere. You wouldn't be able to go into the underground parkings. Like I've got a Ford Raptor Ranger, the new ones that have just come out, and there's an underground parking thing where I can't even get in with my truck, and it's not even a big truck.
It's not.
So it would be very cool, but it would be highly impractical. Also, it's not even an option because you'd have to import them and it would cost double again. And you'd have to convert them to right-hand drive, which is a problem.
So they don't even sell the big trucks in South Africa?
No. At all, no. The only way to really get one is to buy one from a country where they are sold in right-hand drive. But the import stuff would be very, very, very bad. And then there's the gas prices. Fuel is expensive here, so it would be difficult to feed something like that because they're thirsty beasts.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a large dually van myself, and it does. I want to say on the highway I could pull about 15 miles to the gallon if I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. So now you've just spoken about 2 units of measure, which you guys are one of the only countries in the world that still uses those.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
means nothing to me because I'm really bad at math.
Yeah, we
So
had
obviously
those moments.
kilometers and liters. Yeah.
Liters. Yeah.
Yeah. So
when you're out hunting, are you taking the Ranger? Is that what you go around in? And how hard is it to navigate these areas?
So generally, to get to the lodges, it's very easy. I mean, you can get there in your rental, but let's be honest, you can get anywhere in a rental, right?
That's very true.
That would be a fun, Top Gear episode. Can we get to the North Pole in a rental and just absolutely trash this thing?
I mean, that sounds like a normal trip for us.
Yeah. So, but generally, when you get to a farm, there's one vehicle that you'll get on, and it's a Toyota Land Cruiser. Those things are indestructible, and they're kitted out, and the farms provide them. And you'll just, when you're on the farm, that's the vehicle you're heading out on in the morning. You're hunting. Some people like to hunt from the Land Cruiser. I like to get off the Land Cruiser and walk and stalk my animals. So that's kind of the spot and stalk strategy we'll use. We'll identify a group of animals while driving around the property, select a specific one, and then we'll sort of make our plan to get there. That is if there are roads there and if they drive, in the veld. And a lot of farms, they don't. They drive on their main roads, and if you want to get off the main road, then you use your feet. And that's how I prefer to do it. But a lot of people don't do it that way. They choose to just shoot off the bucky. And from a hunting point of view, everybody can't run up the mountains like my brother and I can with a camera. And different stroke for different folks. So as long as you're out hunting and you're supporting the cause, then it's all good.
And you guys don't have side-by-sides like, we were all over those things in Washington.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Well, we do have them, but they're not as popular as they are in the US. Like in where we was driving in that town, it seemed like every freaking house had one.
Yeah.
And hell, if I lived there, I'd have one. But I think that's probably because, we don't have public land where you can take your side-by-side and head up into the mountains with your mates.
Sure.
If we had that, then yes, I'd be in for one of those. But otherwise, it's just an expensive thing that I'm going to drive in the city, which I'm not allowed to do, and then get into trouble because I would definitely drive it in the city.
Take your side-by-side into Joburg and just start firing rounds.
Strap a technical turret thing on the back, like in Mogadishu.
Yes.
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing. That sounds like a wonderful plan. If you're covered and armored up. I mean, I'm sure the U.S. military has an up-armored side-by-side type vehicle. I'm positive they have something like that.
It's called a tank.
No, we have some smaller stuff.
Listen, the whole point of the side-by-side is that there's just pipes and a motor and 4 wheels. Now you want to close the whole thing up, and then it's called a car.
Yeah, let's make it stupid heavy and very awkward to drive, and then put a big gun on the top. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, exactly. With a massive diesel motor.
Tanks. Have you seen those things?
I have seen those. So those are cool.
Yeah. I feel like you and I need to find those. Next time you're in the U.S., we're gonna try and hang out, and we're gonna go shoot paintball tanks at each other.
You were in the car when Eric Cortina nearly killed all of us, right?
Oh, I absolutely effing was. You want to tell that story?
So we're zipping. I've got the whole thing on video.
If Eric Cortina happens to be listening, I doubt he is, but if he's listening, fuck you for almost killing both Peter and me, Nils. Who else was in there?
Nils. I think F-Class John was in there. I don't know.
And I think to my right was Backfire.
The Scott, and it was Scott. I think it was Scott from Stag too.
Okay.
Anyway, so we're cruising up this mountain road, faster than we should be going, but we're having fun.
Yeah.
And I see Eric. For reference, Eric is the F-Class world champion, and
awesome guy.
Awesome, yeah, super funny. And I see he's getting like really into this thing. But now we're like 5 people in the side by side. No, we're 6 people.
Six of
We're
us,
3 in the
6 of us
front,
in this
3 in the
thing.
back, with like a whole bunch of gear on the back. So this thing's like loaded up. Eric's absolutely sending it up this road, and then we get to like this 180-degree sort of switchback turn, and you can see where the digger loader has like plowed the switchback, and it's almost like made a berm. And I immediately realized we're coming in too hot, and I say we're going to overshoot this turn. And instead of him like coming to a reasonable speed and then starting to try and attempt to make this turn, he just keeps it pinned, and we freaking rail this berm. And everybody in the side-by-side got very upset very quickly.
Yeah, we're all screaming at him, whoa, whoa, whoa.
No.
I think the rest of the trip, I got in and drove almost every time, just so that didn't happen. And you could see, everybody's like a couple feet lower on the berm, kind of taking it wide. And then you see this mark like halfway up the berm, and you're like, that's where we almost died.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much. Like if that thing rolls, it's going to suck. For everybody.
To be fair, so the reason we were all like terrified is because immediately on the edge it's just almost straight down. So if we roll the thing, we're all going down a mountain. It's not like, oh, you might fall. No, you're gonna die in the trees.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. And for the rest of the weekend there, I was on the quad bike by myself. I'm in control of my destiny.
Which had no brakes, no rear brakes on that thing, and you picked that over riding with Eric.
Yeah. Also, the front brake, I think only the left front brake worked, because when you hit the front brake, it would pull sharply to the left. So I told Gavin to have a look at the brakes, but I think he knew he needed to do that. Yeah. And I almost got into trouble with that thing too, but yeah. At least then it's my fault. Like I'm all good with getting hurt if it's my fault, but I don't want to get hurt if it's somebody else's fault.
So I was taking a group down the mountain. So basically we were like on 2 sides of a mountain, and I'm taking a group down, kind of gingerly, and I'm I would say like a medium pace maybe.
Yeah.
And Peter's behind me, probably 100 yards or so, and then I come straight on into Ryan from Stag Arms, who's getting ready to go back up, and there's nowhere to pass, so he throws it in reverse, and I hear whoa, 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 and it's just Peter like slamming on with one brake working. It just goes flying up behind us. It was not great.
Yeah, that was not great. Yeah, it could have been, had I not been paying attention, that could have been sucky for me, but it was all good.
We survived that without giving away too much. This will come out. This episode probably won't come out until say like mid to late August.
Okay.
What can
Gavin will be out by then? Yeah.
He said
we can just spill the beans. Right. He said July.
Okay, he said July. So send it. How was the Rock Chuck Olympics? Talk about that. We've got some time. Let's what is it?
So the Rock Chuck Olympics was an invite-only event for some top YouTubers, some top competitive shooters, and me, and we all came together and we just had an absolute blast over 6 very different stages, from pistol stuff to AR stuff to some bolt action stuff. There was not a lot of bolt action stuff, so I kind of like, it wasn't really my specialty, but I think I did well considering the level of competition we were up against. Yeah. I made 1 or 2 silly mental mistakes, but that's lately kind of being a trend with me, because I don't take shooting competitions very seriously anymore, because I kind of messing around and I'm like a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Like I'll try shoot something as fast as I can. Like this past weekend, I cleaned one of the stages in 21 seconds. It was stupid. And I didn't need to do that. I had 2 minutes to do it. And I think as a result of that, I might have made a mistake here or there that I probably could have not made, which would have potentially made the difference between me finishing where I did or didn't.
That's good. So I highly encourage people to, of course, watch your videos on the RCO. I know you've got a couple, and they are over on Ultimate Reloader, probably on his website, on the YouTube.
Yeah.
Just go find Gavin and then go find it. So my role in RCO was to sort of co-host the videos and just talk a lot of shit. That was my role. Yeah. That's how I fit into this, and it was honestly really interesting watching, literal world champions try and shoot outside of their normal field.
Yeah.
Watching like Nils pick up a rifle and do really well with it.
Yeah.
Kind of awesome. And the same goes for Eric with the pistol. I did not expect Eric to do well with a handgun at all. Did you?
Yeah. What I have found with our type of shooting, and this you'll find with most people that are good in what they do, they can apply that skill set to other things very well. And so I knew everybody would do really well, because if you know how to pull a trigger well, whatever you have in your hands kind of, obviously there's the speed of transitioning between targets, picking up optics and stuff like that, but squeezing off good shots. If you're a world F-class champion, I mean, you saw the groups you were shooting of his pistol on the steel. It was ridiculous. Sure. Yeah. So I kind of knew Eric was going to do well. He's got that confidence too, So
yeah.
Can't hide that.
It was very interesting watching him sort of get deeper as the stages progress, watching him get deeper into trying to really compete. Because I think at first nobody really had a good lay of how it would go. And
yeah,
I've got stuff falling in the studio over here. I don't know.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I'm getting a computer's about to die warning too.
Okay. Well, why don't we wrap it up? I think we covered an enormous amount of stuff. One of the things before I let you go that I want people to know about is that you actually teach through an online course how to be able to shoot left-handed and clean a stage, right? Is that what the course is all about?
If you do the course, you should be able to equip yourselves with those skills going forward. So yeah, we have a variety of online courses, from like precision rifle courses to long range courses to reloading rifle ammunition. Because of how YouTube is kind of structured, there's so many things that I cannot show on my channel, but I want to share that knowledge. So I packaged that in an online course, and we've done like 3,000 students, and it's been an incredible journey to hear that feedback from the guys and to see what a difference it's made in their shooting. So yeah, it's been a really cool thing to give back to the community, and selfishly, it's feeding my family. So it's part of the business, and it's something I've really enjoyed doing because I really enjoy teaching people. Apparently, my vocabulary is going out the window right about now.
That's okay.
But I really enjoy the teaching aspect of YouTube, and that's very much where my channel is also focused. It's a teaching channel, less so than an entertainment channel.
Well, I think people definitely need to go check it out. It is Impact Shooting. What's the whole address? Give them the YouTube.
Just address. Impact Shooting on YouTube. You should find
Impact
that.
Shooting. Yeah. Check it out, guys.
YouTube.com/Impact Shooting.
Thank you, man. I really genuinely do appreciate you making the effort to be on here. I'm pumped to have had the chance to get to know you, and now to share your personality with my audience. I really do appreciate it, Pieter. So thanks for coming on, man.
I appreciate that too. Thanks for sharing your platform with me. And you're a fantastic guy. And for your listeners that potentially wonder if Jon is how he is in real life, as what you see on this, what you see is exactly what you get, which for me is always refreshing when I meet a fellow YouTuber and I get to see that the YouTube thing is not a show. This is actually who this person is. So that's very cool. So kudos to you for that.
I would say I probably talk a little bit more shit when the camera's not on. I would say a little bit more
well,
shit.
We try and keep our channels family friendly, right?
Yeah, it's something like that. I really appreciate that, man. Before we go, I'm going to give a shout out to our sponsors, blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. Use our code TGC. I talked about it before. Go get yourself some coffee. Buy our Tenacity blend. It's really good. Also, check out Vertex. Use code TGC. Peter loves Vertex. Look at him. He's running for the bag. Look at it. There
all my stuff's in here. Yeah.
Definitely. We love Vertex. Both of us do. Be sure to use our code TGC. And as always, guys, thank you all for watching, listening, etc. Thanks again, Peter, for being here. And we'll see y'all soon.